This is an old guard, old bass. Guess what, guys? It's gonna change.
This is a major shift on the planet. He is the planet of death and rebirth. So Pluto squaring the nodes of the moon is a major epic transit and in some ways reflects the entire decade or so of the old world going away and a new world being formed, but through conflict and obstacle. The old world, the old guard is going to grab and try to keep things the same. At the same time, a square to the north node means it's a difficult, challenging, and potentially chaotic experience to build the new world that we're trying to create. This is a major shift on the planet.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wondered what the world is coming for the new year and if we'll be all right, oh my, then do we have the 2024 prediction show for you. Today, I'll be talking with Dr. Michael Lennox, my all-time favorite astrologer, author of a brilliant new book, Psychic Dreamer, and creator of the Daily Astro Alert about all things for the new year and what it means for you. So welcome back to the show, Michael. Are you ready to shine?
I am, Michael. It's great to be here, always.
It is great to have you here. And so I read the notes before I started the show, and I said, I can't believe I'm going to do this. Michael, are we in for a civil war in 2024?
Probably not till 25.
Oh, God.
But, here's, I will say this, unequivocally, we have not seen the peak of the current chaos on the planet. We absolutely have not. I don't think that next year is a year of explosions or sudden enormity that may come in like 25 and 20 in 25 and 26 when some planets move and change signs. So we've got a kind of a year next year very similar to this one.
You know why I'm laughing, because I'm going, wait a second.
Yeah.
It is a very rare bird in 2023 who said, woohoo, this year has been the time of my life. Now, when I spoke to you last year, you said the first half of 2023 would be all right. And then we would have to kind of tuck and cover.
Yep.
Does not seem like anybody got off even in the first half of 2023. So we really need to look at, you were talking about long tail COVID beforehand. I talked about national championships yesterday, still have the tattoo on my arm where I woke up with a fever.
Oh, dear.
and I had COVID this fall as well. So it has been a magnificently juicy year. Why, Michael?
Yeah. Well, I think that if I spoke into the second half of the year being when it started to heat up, and our personal experience notwithstanding, if you watch the news and social current events, they got heated up in the second half of the year. And one of the transits that marked last year, we're still sort of in last year, this year, I'll say 23 and 24 now. One of the 2023 big changes was Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth and change and transformation at the utter level, formed a square with the south and the north nodes of the moon. The nodes of the moon represent the collective movement of the planet. The south node is the past that we're moving away from. The north node is the future that we're moving into. These are the points of energy generated by eclipses, right? So eclipses are the transformative energy that shove us away from our past and into the future with these phenomenal shadow breaking moments. So Pluto squaring the nodes of the moon is a major epic transit that played out this summer, but also reflected the whole year, and in some ways reflects the entire sort of like decade or so of the old world going away and a new world being formed right as we're also trying to live day to day. So because squares are the geometry of conflict and obstacle, Pluto looks to the past and says, well, we're letting the old world go, but through conflict and obstacle. The old world, the old guard is going to grab and try to keep things the same. and the world is changing. And so we're like fighting to release the old world. At the same time, a square to the north node means it's a difficult, challenging, and potentially chaotic experience to build the new world that we're trying to create. So while that was a transit that hit in 2023 and peaked in July of 2023, it's one of those powerhouse astrology transits that really marks the whole decade being about an old world that's going away and a new world that's trying to be born, while the old guard is grabbing in what I call an extinction grab. The old world is trying to stick to, the way it was. And so lots of stuff is rising up to say, no, we liked it the old way.
And I like that you call it an extinction, because that actually gives hope for people. And I think hope is important at this time. I watched a documentary, Sylvester Stallone, Sly. And at the end of it, he goes, wow, what's the business that I'm in? I'm in the business of giving people hope.
Wow, that's actually profound when you think about the message of Rocky.
Yeah.
Is a message of the underdog can rise up, that there is hope. So yay. Yay. We all need a little bit of that.
I think we need a lot of bit of that, because the old guard. So I don't know how it happened, but I moved in an hour ago. And so I'm in a brand new studio, not set up yet. My third move this year, right, Michael. Third move.
So would you say that this move and the studio and the new place is a bona fide part of the new future you are creating for yourself in your life?
Yes, but it's a holding space. We've already got a time. The bread is in the oven of this period of our lives, so to speak, and so it has a bumper at the end of it. But what I know is, and this is something I'm going to go back to his documentary again. You see Sly in this amazing home, and he said, I've got maybe 20 years left to live, and so I'm packing it all up and moving. Because if I stay in the known, I won't grow. That's where I see us right now.
That is beautiful language for Pluto squaring the South Node. I'm going to sell everything. I am moving, and I'm going to forge a life that is, in the direction of, hope and joy and whatever he wants to experience for his last, 20 years or so. And the point I was making about you, even if this isn't the forever home, you got to this next iteration of your future. This is an iteration of your future through conflict. You didn't get there easily.
No, but what is cool, and it's hard to look at 2023 and say, this is cool, that is cool, because I think killing anybody is about the uncoolest thing there is in existence.
Yes.
I don't know of anything less cool. However, it is the old guard. I'm seeing it in the stars. You're seeing it in the stars. I want to hear more about it. This is an old guard, old gas. Guess what, guys? Yes. It's gonna change.
And I'll point out something else about 23 that is also almost exactly true for 24, which is Pluto changing signs. This is a major shift on the planet, in the zeitgeist, in the collective, because Pluto is an outer planet. He represents a kind of higher self-consciousness and a collective sensibility. And he is the planet of death and rebirth. So if we are changing, Pluto has to be in the house, because he is the only agent of change in the zodiac. There's two planets of change, and not the only, because there's Uranus. Pluto changes things slowly and irrevocably down to the molecular level and up again. Uranus changes are about, the life. I fell into a cliff because, the lightning bolt flash, fast change.
Yeah.
So Pluto leaving or entering a sign is major. You can think of Pluto as having spent 20 years in Capricorn. He entered Capricorn in 2008 and 9, and immediately started breaking down the structures of our sort of social economic order. Capricorn rules structure and order. And when Pluto moved into Capricorn, the banking markets fell, housing blew up. The old guard of Capricornian structure began to break down.
Yeah.
Now Pluto's at the very last degrees of Capricorn 2023. So what is he saying to himself? He's like, oh, I have a lot more structures I have to break down before I'm done. I won't be back here for 250 years. I got to get busy destroying the old world, similar to the enthusiasm he might have had for destroying the old world in 2008 and 9 with the recession and everything that brought. As he leaves Cap, he's like empowered to destroy more.
Now, let's talk about, I can't, it feels like a time of being lost, Michael. Now, I see lost as a good thing. I've got a show coming out next week about why being in the darkness is a good thing. However, you've mentioned next year, as I've gone through things, North Node in Pisces, as we've got this whole Pluto going on, means we're not going to know where the heck we're going. And it seems like a big time of cluelessness.
Well, you're absolutely right that the not knowing is one of the most fertile places that you can live. And most of us are so deeply uncomfortable living there that we will, we will fill the emptiness with ideas that maybe, don't belong there. The seed that's about to become, the acorn that's about to become a tree is suffocating and dark and wet. It's like trapped in earth and it's miserable. And then it starts breaking open. Ow, that doesn't feel good. But that's the germination of the new sort of field. And so, yes, we are absolutely in that. Now, as Pluto moved out of Capricorn this year, he moved into Aquarius. So now we start seeing all sorts of changes in the direction of the new world, all of the technology shifts, all of the fears around AI going to take over and ruin everything. That's an Aquarius consciousness. Aquarius invented the internet and technology.
Can I pause you there for a second?
Yeah.
Because people say, well, we're entering the age of Aquarius. It's going to be Aquarius. Aquarius. It's going to be all kumbaya and
yes,
fuzzy bunnies. And I think the last time I had you on, you said, over 2,500
That's years. Right, sweetheart. Come back in 1,500 years when we've gotten it right. We are charged with taking a world created out of colonization, patriarchy, polarization, and separateness to create a world in where all human beings are cared for, but we live in a world where most human beings that need the most care are routinely discarded. So how can we create that kumbaya world without being in that very awkward period where the old world still exists and we're trying to forge a new one? And then, everybody's going crazy on both sides of that conversation. No side has the right way through.
There are no sides. That's the thing. It's unity consciousness. It's all oneness. That's the only side on a round planet to play on, but it may take us a little while to get there.
Yeah. Listen, I feel very fortunate that my personality allows me to be sunny while deep change is happening. I live enough sort of in the world, but not of it, that it's easy for me to remember that my happiness doesn't depend on how I feel, that the stress and the fear of a world gone mad doesn't have to make me feel like I'm living in misery. But I also know that that's a blessing, that my personality allows that more than the average bear. It would be really arrogant of me if I shared with the world how easy I have it with seeing the war everywhere without getting too constricted by it, because then people will think, well, oh, he's, so lofty. It's like, I don't have to work at that as much as you think. In fact, I'd say the opposite is true, that in the last 4 or 5 years, I've had to start working on letting go of the, perceiving the world and being frightened by what I see. Whereas before, 4 years ago, I didn't have to put any effort in. But yeah, we all have to get used to living in the unknown, because the known sense of where we're going next ain't available. And next year, 24, will be very similar in terms of the things that break down, because Pluto's going to move back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius again, just as he did in 23. It's a 2-year process of him inching in and then back and in and then back 5 times, finishes up at the end of next year, and then we're in Pluto and Aquarius in earnest for the next 20 years. So that crisscrossing back in 24 will present us with similar ways that the old guard will be dying off and the new guard will be starting in a manner that's going to freak everybody out.
So I did my race yesterday, and it was ugly but beautiful. I think that's how we can describe life right now. Yeah. Is you're going, yeah. I'm 1 minute in, fever just takes over my face. I pop up in the water, and I look at a person on a surfboard, a safety person. I'm going, you could just hang on to that board right now and call it good. And I'm like, nope, that's not what I'm here for. But what happens is you do the swim, you do your running, and then you're riding, and you're on the bike, and you're halfway through, you're 2/3 of the way through, and the body goes kaput on you. Now you have a choice at this moment to recognize the kaputedness and just be with the kaputedness. And chances are you'll actually come back online, or say, this is it, I can't take this anymore, and quit. Are there points, you talked about it, flipping signs, going back and forth. Are there points in 2024 that we know if we hold on, and I came through the other side and I actually felt better for the rest of the race. Are there points at which we hold on where things will maybe not get easier, but relax their grip just a little bit to give us, again, the hope business, the hope of getting through this?
I'm going to answer this in a couple of ways.
Thank you.
One is that in 2023, all of the Mercury retrogrades happened in Earth signs.
Yes.
Earth is about the world of form. So if Mercury's retrogrades have the capacity to change our perception, now it becomes an interesting conversation to have, because you just outlined a story that looks like it's a story about your physical body, but it's not. It's a story about your mind. Yes. Your body could run that race up one wall and down the other through 3 oceans and 5 hills. Your body was not the problem yesterday. Your mind was.
Fair enough.
Right? So by virtue of having moved through a year with 3 and sort of 4 Mercury retrogrades, because he's going to go retrograde in December, cross the new year while retrograde in Capricorn and Earth sign, we spent all of 23 reforming how we're perceiving the actual physical world in which we live. So 2024's Mercury retrogrades are in fire signs.
Yeah.
Or they go into Earth and back into fire, right? So it's the element I was going to say du jour, but it would be du année. I'm sorry, I don't speak
I get
French.
You, of the year.
Of the year is fire, which is about combustion and movement and passion and action, right? So it's like, on one level, 23 was like, holy shit, the world is changing, and I don't know how I fit into that. Mercury retrogrades helped us perceive a world in form that's changing so drastically. And Mercury retrogrades, nobody likes Mercury retrogrades, but man, are they valuable. They help us come out the other side, seeing the world differently. And I do think that Mercury retrogrades in fire signs will help us find our passion, find our mojo, find our fire.
Yes.
One could argue that Jupiter in Taurus, which is where he is now and where he spent much of this year, would be the bestity best of a sign for the planet of manifestation to be in. Jupiter is about expansion and all the yummy stuff that we want more of. Taurus is a sign about money, reward, all of the yummy stuff in life. And so one could say, well, Jupiter in Taurus is as sort of gives that access to what you were asking about, kind of yummy, hope, passion, like things that feel better than the destruction of stuff that's there all the time. I think that Jupiter moving into Gemini is actually going to feel more joyful and excited than Jupiter in Taurus. First of all, Gemini is a sign about connection with others. So Jupiter moving into Gemini, which happens in, God knows, my notes are all over the place, at the end of May.
Yes.
So at the end of May, he's going to zip through Taurus for the first few months of the year, finish up with Taurus at the end of May, move into Gemini. So from June on, how we manifest and create more of what we desire is gonna require connection with others. Gemini always generates connection and communication and interaction with others where we share our ideas. I think that offers a kind of way in which people will gather in shared joy, because the planet that brings the deliciousness of everything, which includes gathering and being with others, I think that's a sort of a lift up. And the fact that this isn't exactly a thing that's happening, more of a bunch of things that are not happening. What there isn't in 24, which is similar to 23, is that outside of Pluto changing signs, there isn't any big transits or ingresses in the way that there will be in 25 and 26, and there were in, say, 2020 and 2021. Right? So that's a message that says it won't be as bad, air quotes, as the fantasies that some of us might have about what might come.
Well, I'm jumping ahead and we have a lot of ground to cover. But since you brought that up, we have this little thing called an election.
Yeah.
In 2024. Yeah. And you're saying it's going to get ugly in 2025. I guess we need to go back and rip the scab off of this wound, this 250-year wound here. And we need to understand, is there timing in the stars around election results and how soon things are going to be duck and cover in 2025?
Well, it's interesting that astrologically, there isn't like some big energetic kerfuffles at the end of the year.
That's good.
I think that is very good. Something that I've said, I think we talked about it maybe a few months ago when we talked about the big changes that are coming in 25 and 26. You've got the planet of spiritual and religious connection, Neptune, who's in his ruling sign of Pisces and has been there since 2011 and will be there through much of 25. When Neptune moves out of Pisces and into Aries, then all of us are going to feel more on fire with what we believe. Now, we've already got a war in the Middle East that is rivaling the polarization in the United States about what's happening here, and it's increasing the polarization in the United States. So that makes the election and what may come up even more juicy. I think that the bigger challenges that we will see are more likely to come after, which makes some sense. No matter what happens in November of 24, really, no matter what happens, it's the aftermath that's going to be more contentious than the actual moving through election season. And so that's why I have some sensitivity about what's going to happen in the United States as Neptune moves into Aries and gets us more fired up. And then a little bit after that, Uranus changes signs, Pluto gets into Aquarius in earnest. And all of those changing planets will also interact with each other. That does make second half of 25 the beginning of what I'm calling astrologically the fire. So, I can't predict won't there be civil war? Because A, I don't think that's predictable. And B, I think it's an irresponsible use of astrology to do so. What I will say for sure is that Neptune moving into Aries brings the power of love, forgiveness, compassion, and the love of the divine, which Neptune carries, into the first sign that invented like form itself. Aries is the birth canal, Pisces is the womb, and 0 degrees Aries is the woohoo, I've arrived. I dove into the void and I come up into consciousness and I shout, I am. That power of I am coming from deep in spirit, that's universal. That divine consciousness doesn't know from our human polarization. Now, how we catch up to a divine sense of unity when we see that unity through the lens of polarization, I don't know. I also do think that as Neptune and Uranus and Saturn change signs in 25 and 26, I think we're going to see an increase of the conflict in fiery ways. Bigger, more
interesting
intense.
Censorship there.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, I think I'm the most hopeful guy who talks about this. I feel hopeful. I use language that I think is hopeful. Yes. And yet I'll still have people push back when I start bringing in politics. I will still get at least one email that, says something about, why are you talking about politics? Why are you pushing sides? It's like, I don't think I'm doing that. But if that's what you project on what I'm doing, okay. But that's more on you than me. I feel hopeful.
Here's a crazy question. We're gonna play energy and astrology here. You mentioned that it's going to become a more fiery time. People are going to be more fiery, more passionate. And when I look at global warming, way off topic here, but maybe not so. Yeah. I see this fire of the planet bringing people's emotions up where normally they might have been cooler about things. Now you have wars and stuff popping when temperatures are at their peak. And I go, hey, there's a similarity here. Are there cooler periods in this year ahead where we can actually anchor in our energy, anchor in our emotions, and do the individual work to help anchor in humanity to get through the fiery times?
Well, I appreciate in your questioning that you're looking for like life rafts and little floaties and little gimmies. And it's like, I don't have that to give you, Michael. It's like, that's what we say to the people who are interested in what we have to say. It's like, that's your job. I do not have for you an idea that in 2024, there will be a month that will come by that's going to give you easily that sense of grace.
Well, I'm not looking for the sense of grace. I'd love a sense of grace. I'm meaning
we have to cultivate it for ourselves.
I know we get to do the inner work. I'm asking, is there, if we talk about time periods of manifestation, for instance, are there time periods where if we really crank up the inner work, we can make things even marginally different? Because let's not go to the word hope here, but let's say we are all individual tuning forks going through this. Is there a time where we can ramp that up to help collectively?
I think you're going to hate my answer, Michael, because I don't have more of an answer than I did 3 minutes ago when I said, I don't think I can answer your question in the way that you want me to answer it. I'll tell you this. There's a Mars retrograde coming towards the end of the year. Mars goes retrograde about every 2 to 2.5 years, similar to Venus. It's not like clockwork. It's a little more sporadic, but it is within 2 to 2.5 years, Mars will go retrograde. Retrogrades are always personal planet retrogrades, not the outer planets and social planets. Those retrogrades are meaningless to your day-to-day experience. You don't need to pay attention to them. But personal planet retrogrades change us. And they change us collectively, even though we experience it individually, right? A Mercury retrograde changes us in our thinking at the individual level, but we all move through the retrograde together at the same time and in the same way. Mars retrogrades help us embody our psyche differently.
Okay. Okay.
So Mercury retrogrades help us change our perception. So it's like you're asking me for like a hopeful bomb for 2024. And I'm going to tell you and your people the hopeful bomb you're asking about is the 3 times that Mercury goes retrograde and the Mars retrograde that starts up in October and crosses over into the beginning of 2025. Nobody wants to hear that answer because that's like, well, Mercury retrogrades are hard. Yes, they are. This is hard. Changing your perception is hard. Dropping the polarization rage is hard. The retrograde cycles are where we do that work at the personal level. And so what we want to do is embrace every moment that change is possible and understand that change is hard. There are no gimmies. We have left the building where they're giving out like the right, I lost my analogy, like the helpful things. We got them.
We just came back from Disney World a week or two where they're giving out the lollipops.
There you go. Well, yeah,
Let's go to something interesting. And so we're still kind of early in 2024, although we know that the shoe is falling in 2025 here. Or, well, let's not use that term, know that. There is a possibility that we get to prepare for. However, you mentioned that I'm going through your notes here. Chiron conjunction North Node, February 18th, 2024, and you say, we must turn to our Yoda wisdom in order to powerfully move forward.
Okay. Yes, there's something that's happening next year, 2024, that peppers out throughout the year. Several of them. But one of them that is, I think, the most powerful is this way in which the great healer Chiron and the North Node of our sort of destiny lines up in early February. So the North Node, we've mentioned this before, is that piece of energy that generates eclipses in the cosmos that then therefore become a collective experience. And so anything that hits the North Node is impacting all of our kind of forward movement. Because I'm a psychologist and I do classes on shadow work and I'm interested in helping people heal trauma, and I come from trauma that I have healed, I think that one of the most powerful ways we become people who can help usher in the age of Aquarius is that we heal our inner wounds.
Amen.
So we have been through the mill of that over the last couple of years, and lots of astrological permutations have helped us dive in and do some deep healing. So Chiron and the North Node will come together only about every 25 years or so. And this is that moment where our collective movement forward has to take in the healing work that we've accomplished. So why I use Yoda in my notes is because I like to think of Chiron as Yoda. Because Chiron connects us to the wounds we have to heal, you can think of Chiron as the sort of only trekking in wound, right? But Chiron in mythology wasn't just a healer. He was a wise man who lived, he wasn't a man, he was a centaur, half horse, half human. And he lived in the woods like Yoda does. And he like Yoda connects with Luke Skywalker. And then that wisdom is downloaded into our hero. So we all have this inner Yoda. And we've been dancing with our inner Yoda the last couple of years through these healing transits. And early in February comes this, sort of meet up where now Yoda says, this way, go. And so all of us want to be paying attention to where we are taken in the month of February. This is a collective transit, but each of us experience it at the individual level. Be paying attention at the end of winter. Where do you feel led? And if it feels different, follow the impulse.
This is important. So to me, what this means is it's almost like you need to put a sticky note on your fridge that says, pay particular attention to what messages what signs, what calling cards, what stoplights, what fevers on the day of your race, what is coming in February, because that's a key marker for your own personal transition. Or we're none of us are going to be coming out of 2024, 2025 the same as we entered.
Correct. And you're right. The winter will show a kind of like roadmap.
So I guess people always want to go to eclipses as these real positive manifestation. I get to do some great change. Something awesome is going to come of it. Around this April, I believe it's April 8th, around this time period, what's the lay of the land? And is there anything unusual or to take note of with this eclipse coming up?
Well, interesting that we'll mention eclipse. I'll just throw this in there. The eclipses are driven by where the nodes of the moon are.
Yeah.
And one of the shifts and changes in that comes at the beginning of January 2025. So in 2025, that's when the nodes switch signs. You already mentioned something about the North Node moving into Pisces.
Yes.
Well, that's when that happens. And you're right that what will be challenging about eclipse seasons in 24 and half of 25 is that the North Node, which will drive the North Node eclipses, will be in a sign that we require blindness to move through, right? Pisces is about, I have no idea where I am. I have to trust where I'm going. So that means that we're still in the Aries Libra eclipse season in 2024.
Okay.
That is right. So there are two kinds of eclipses: North Node eclipses and South Node eclipses. Because every 6 months, the sun and the Earth will align with one of those nodes, and that's what generates the right and perfect angle to create eclipses. So we are in an 18-month period, half of 23 and all of 24, where our South Node eclipses are in alignment with Libra and our North Node eclipses are in alignment with Aries, which means we are moving away from passivity, trusting that balance will happen by itself, which it won't. We have to create it. Moving away from ways that you felt unmoved by the world. Aries, which is where the North Node is the sign of get into action, get moving, create journey for yourself, a sense of beginning. So the eclipses that are coming have a similar last sort of opportunity to figure out what we're letting go of that's in the direction of I can't be bothered and move in the direction of I have to take action.
That's particularly interesting to me because my whole, and I believe you've probably seen it over this year, my whole my whole something, I don't even have what the word is, has been shifting from a just doing the inner work to stepping forward, getting into action. Yeah. It's as if we've been building this, what do we want to call it? Flywheel. The flywheel spinning and spinning and spinning, and we've got to knock it or put it into gear. And so every one of my shows has been about now, guys, we get to step forward in one way or the other. And that's what you're talking about here.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I identify for myself that I'm not the guy you send into the room to talk to the two people who don't agree. Like that's not my skill set. I'm too reactive. I have too much rage. I'm not that guy. Right. And we've talked about this a million times. It's about doing the inner work. And if more people on the planet are doing that, there's a greater chance of a collective projection of love and whatnot. But I have had to really grapple with being the astrologer who's now being asked to talk about things that might or might not happen, that look scary, that address the deep polarization on the planet. And every time I do get a little bit of, let's just say, feedback from people who don't want me to talk about politics. When I'm not really sure how you can separate being an astrologer and talking about what's happening on the world. But I get it that in my Aries stepping up, I also recognize that there are fears that I have about that, putting myself out there in a bigger way. And all of us have to do this at an individual level. We all have to move towards our activation. Remember, Neptune moving into Aries is going to activate us. So eclipses in 23 and 24, where the North Node is in Aries, are helpful, transformative moments that will get us activated. The first eclipse of next year, which is in late March and early April, is a North Node eclipse. So that means that we're more focused in the springtime with what we're looking to create in the sort of new, the new world we're generating. And then in September, late September and early October, we have our South Node eclipses, where we're more concerned with what we're dropping, what we're letting go of, what we are releasing. And these are the last two eclipses in these signs that we will have for the next 19 years. And I think they are preparatory. I think they put us into 25 more activated and more clear about what we want to start up.
It seems so important then that this year, the clarity, that's the word we're looking for. We get to be clear who and what we stand for, who and what we are. And it's sort of like, oh God, there was this B movie long time ago called Accepted. Kids don't get into college. They start their own college. There's this kid who starts his own class in cooking, and he picks up some food and he stares at it and he holds it in his hand and he goes, "What are you?" And that's what we need to do with ourselves in this coming year, is say,
totally.
What am I?
I like it. I like the way you're thinking. Sure. So there are some other things that happen in the year that could be interesting and even potentially hopeful. Jupiter, the planet of expansion, while in Taurus, is going to conjunct Uranus, the great awakener, in the third week of April. This could signal moments. Yes. Now, listen, it's true. Boom is the right word. Uranus is sudden, unexpected. And there's no, listen, I don't think any of us should live in a world where we call some things good and other things bad. I think that's problematic. But outside of that, personal opinion, Uranus truly knows nothing about what we would call good or bad, just change, right? Jupiter only treks in good, air quotes good, right? Only involves himself with generating good, bounty, abundance, prosperity, expansion, education, all the yummy, right? So their coming together is explosive. And we got to trust that Jupiter's shadow of over the top and Uranus's shadow of holy shit, I didn't see that coming, won't be too disruptive. But it's another moment like you're asking for. I would call this a hopeful moment of possibility for new things to fit in alignment with the desires that you have. Right? Uranus brings the possibility of the sudden new thing, and Jupiter brings the manifestation energy. And this is at the tail end of Jupiter's passage through Taurus. So one could argue that he's ready to deliver us some sort of desires that we've been working on. That's I don't know if I would call this a hopeful moment on my own, but it's certainly a moment in the year that says, don't forget, guys, good stuff still happens. There's still joy and yummy.
It sounds like a be careful what you wish for, meaning
maybe
what is coming will probably be for your highest good, but it may not be coming in the vehicle or the ease that you desire.
Yes. Love it.
So that
Absolutely.
brings us to Saturn semi-square Pluto. What is that? It happens May 6th and it happens September 25th. And it means at this point, I believe that we may be slowed
Yeah,
down.
I would call these pace setter transits. In fact, Saturn and Chiron, the teacher and the healer, semi-squared. I think it was a semi-square in 2023, 3 times, right? Which is just a mild conflict that says responsibility may trip us up, and not being quite in rightness with ourselves. Chiron might trip us up. Mild, only triple transit of the year, so it wouldn't be like 2021 where Saturn and Uranus squared. Those are major planets doing major geometry. Nothing like that. This is similar. This is similar to the 2023 thing where responsibility and making sure our healing is in alignment was so present in this mild conflict that all of us had to move a little slower than we wanted to make sure we weren't missing the lesson or ignoring the healing. So Saturn semi-squaring Pluto is similar. Pluto has the urge to change, and Saturn says it's going to be slower than you want. A semi-square is half a square. So a square, 90 degrees, is full on conflict. Semi is like, well, half that. So this is not a major transit, but it hits in the peak of spring and the peak of fall up here in the Northern Hemisphere. And it does mean that the whole year and what we want to create will go slower than we want. Set your pace and don't push too hard, especially spring and on.
Thank you. And I think that's important to understand. I remember 2021 very well. and I remember being told to hold on to my energy. Things will be coming. Don't expend. In fact, refill your batteries for what's coming.
Yeah. Yep.
There was 2 interesting days as we're moving spring almost into summer. We have May 23rd and May 24th. There's a Jupiter sextile Neptune on May 23rd, which means we're getting in flow. We're oneness, spiritual pursuits, creative, intuitive. But then the next day, like you thought things were going good, Michael. The next day, we got another semi-square with the North Node, Jupiter again. And now all of a sudden, we're back into kaboom. What's going on?
Yeah. So this is one of the juicy things that we always have to do in astrology is interpret into the contradiction. And then we never know quite if we got it right? Like, so, we'll talk in June to see how May went. But yes, there's this way in which in the 3rd week in May, we pass through a really beautiful interaction between the planet that brings expansion and the planet that brings our connection to spirit, through which all expansion occurs. Right. So you're right. If without that second, edgy thing of the semi-square to the North Node, late May would just be like the winning the lottery, cash and prizes, woohoo. And because we manifest through our unconscious, and Jupiter is the planet of the manifested desires that we have, and Neptune brings the fertile soil of the unconscious. Man, is that a fertile place. The but comes with the desire you have may or may not fit into the collective world that we're in at that moment. So Jupiter in a semi-square with a North Node would be like, oh, do you really want to wear that outfit?
I'm going to back you up a minute. You said something profound, and it has to do, I think, a lot with your book, Psychic Dreamer, as well. You said that we manifest through our subconscious.
Yes.
You mentioned earlier shadow, which sounds like this is a time, and certainly we've got the 250-year arc of the U.S. here. This is a time where we really get to go into our shadow. We get to do a lot of, this is what I've been playing with in the School of Mystics right now, understanding what the subconscious programs are and rewire them at this time, or you are going to manifest. It just probably ain't going to be what you consciously want it to be.
That's right. That's right. And so, this, even though one happens on the 23rd, one happens on the 24th, it won't play out like on the first day, it's like I get the prize, and on the second day, it's taken away from me. It won't be quite that literal, but it is, we do all have to be aware that what we desire on the inside may not fit or be right, and the world will reform us. The world will tell us what needs to shift once we put our sort of desires into the world receives or doesn't. And so Jupiter semi-squaring the North Node is I'm not sure the world is ready for this, where Jupiter sextile Neptune is, I got all this to share. And somehow between the two, late May becomes a moment where we might figure out a little bit about what is the right path forward by making some adjustments as we move out of May and into June.
Thank you. So let's go May into June. And it sounds like what we've got a lot is Jupiter. We've got a lot of big energy going on. We got a lot of Pluto going on, which is the holy crap wrecking ball. And you say Jupiter trines Pluto on June 2nd. So we've got bigness, wrecking ball. What's going on here?
Well, this is sort of the crash of what's possible when Jupiter, the planet of manifestation, moves into Gemini. First of all, love the idea of Jupiter in Gemini. Spoke about it earlier in our conversation, just the Gemini is about connection with others. And boy, do we need connection energy. Gemini also invented polarization. So the idea that we are, in fact, the chart of the United States has Mars, which is about bodies. And I think Mars in the United States chart represents the body of, the population. It's in Gemini. We are a polarized nation astrologically. So if Gemini is where polarization sort of first got invented, Jupiter moving into that sign could help us bridge some gaps energetically between polarized sides, right? That at least for the period of time from late May to the end of the year that the planet of expansion is in the sign of polarization, we will be better capable of being in a world that has different sides that we have to sort of figure out how to navigate. So the entrance of, that's worthy of a woohoo. So
I'm taking the positives Jupiter, where I can, Michael.
Right. The entrance of Jupiter into Gemini will be another one of those moments that you were looking for earlier of like signs of joy or grace or ease or some kind of hopefulness. Not that Jupiter's not happy in Taurus. He's gorgeously at home in Taurus. It's simply that by changing signs, he's bringing a new energy, right? Jupiter spends about a year in a sign. It's a new energy. And the first thing he will do from his place at the early degrees of Gemini is trine Pluto in Aquarius. Trines are positive energy, although, in the old days, we would say, trines bring good things. And now we just say trines bring flow. That's the idea of the geometry of a triangle, is it's the most flowing harmony that two bodies can experience in their relative position in the world of geometry. So you've got the planet of expansion in harmony with the planet of deep change. That's a hopeful moment. That's a moment that says, though the old world is dying, thank you, Pluto, we are birthing something new and expansive and fabulous through Jupiter in, Gemini. So it's a lovely moment that does sort of make June or early June kind of another possible sort of moment of yummy.
Yeah. And it sounds like as we get into, as things start heating up, I don't know if I want to even use that term for the summer, forgive me everybody, that we'll take that early June moment, because we've got like June 30th, Jupiter semi-squaring Chiron. What's going on then? And are there some other early summer key moments to be aware of?
That's a brief moment. It only hits once, but it is a sort of moment of frustration around the abundance, prosperity, desires that we have. Jupiter's always going to carry our desires with him. That's the essence of his planet. Wounds hold us back. So when the planet of expansion is in mild conflict geometry with the planet that carries our wounds, as we move out of June into July, some of us will be sort of set back a little bit because something will grab our attention at a healing level. So I will also point out that in the scope of things, this is a really minor transit, Michael, and like you're mentioning it because it's on my outline, but it almost doesn't have any like bearing in a short conversation like ours.
What does over the summer? What has the most bearing over this summer to come?
Well, Uranus in Uranus, that brings the sudden and unexpected. I also think that the date of this transit is interesting to me. Let me say what it is. So I stop. No, finish all my sentences.
See it coming.
Uranus, it's all about the semi-square, by the way. Most of the transits that are happening in 2024 are semi-squares, 45-degree angles, minor stress. But Uranus brings the did not see that coming. Semi-square is mild conflict and obstacle energy, and the North Node is collective. So we're all going to be experiencing some I did not see that coming energy, and the date it's exact is July 5th. And in the United States, that's a very key moment. July 4th is our Independence Day. So like 5 days later, Jupiter is going to sextile the North Node, right? So you got both Uranus hitting the North Node while Jupiter is building a hit to the North Node, and they both hit that sort of first week into the second week of July. Jupiter sextiling the North Node in and of itself is positive. Mm-hmm. It's about our desires to expand, working well with where we want to go next. But remember, Jupiter has a shadow of extra over the topness. So I do think that summer in the United States, and you don't need an astrologer to predict the potential for our, celebration of our country to be a moment of potential exuberance that could have some edges. I'm staying home on July 4th.
and I can't help but go there. I study the climate as a hobby, and I can't help but see, coming out of this year with El Nino, next summer is going to be hotter. It's a several year, a 2 to 3 year pattern that when the hot water comes to the surface, watch out. And I've watched people's emotions be directly related to the temperature on the planet.
Yeah, listen, I would love to just acknowledge something here. Astrology does not describe weather. Weather fits in the camp of chaos and randomness, but we do live on a planet where everything is reflecting everything else. And so the idea that a fever is a body filled with toxicity that needs to free and release those toxins. That's what happens, is the temperature rises. And the global warming crisis is very much the same thing. We are in fever, the temperatures are rising. And so if the temperature of the water is higher in the ocean, then the temperature of water that makes up your little body is higher as well. Even if we're speaking symbolically, I do think that there's a reflection happening between the warming climate and the heating up of intensity in each of us.
So before we go then into the rest of the year and some key points and hopefully leave it on a note of somewhat hope, Michael, I will pull at my straws here. This is all about, on some level, whether we're looking at the climate, where we're looking at the stars, where we're looking at the forgive me, the holy shittedness of the world right now. It's all here to serve us, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think that that's an easier principle to embody when asking us to see it that way is harder because it's so brutal out there. It's like nobody wants to believe that much rage lives in us as individuals, but it does. It does. And so, each of us are an individualized expression of the collective. The collective's in trouble, then therefore so are we. So that doesn't mean that each of us at the individual level will feel as much at war as the war in, the various places where war is at right now. We still all have a responsibility to live our individual lives through the principle that this is for us. There's that hierarchy of understanding life where it starts with this is happening to me.
Yes.
Right. That's the victim consciousness, vertical, sort of no vertical living of the divine, but just like, it's your fault. This is happening to me. And then we
victimhood.
Victimhood. We move to a place where it's like we understand that life is happening for me. And that's a step in the right direction where it's like, it sucks. But I do understand that I can make something with this of value, so it's happening for me. I believe that there's a place we get to. I'd like to think that I'm getting there, is we can live life as it's happening as me.
Tell me more.
Not to me. Well, we are creating this. Even the idea that maybe we're living in a hologram or what do you call it? A
simulation.
Simulation. If we were living in a simulation and we knew that, we would probably judge how we're doing it less. So we are living in a simulation. Now, I don't know that it's a computer simulation from an advanced intelligence and where this is our first time through or not. Like, I'm not talking about this idea as true or not. I'm using it as a kind of way of saying that when you really know that we are creating all of this and we have the ability through a disciplined mind to change the perception of what is happening, then we're cooking with gas as life is happening as me. So if I wake up on a Tuesday and I do not like how it feels on the inside of my body, and I look at my calendar and I say, holy shit, I am not going to be able to make that happen from this embodiment. I can go to my altar and change the experience. By the same token, by the way, I can have a trigger and know that I don't want to brush it away, that there's something for me to learn if I lean into the pain and suffering. So it's not about living, namby-pamby. Like sometimes living where the world is unfolding as us means I'm in some pain and discomfort, or I'm in this, or I'm in that, or I go to my altar and I say, I need to change my consciousness. Then I'm living cooking with gas because I'm recognizing that I'm the creator. Sometimes I want to change the experience I'm having. Sometimes I want to accept it, even though it's painful. And when I know that it's happening as me, that I'm the creator, that's the most grace I've ever experienced, when I've gotten out of the judgments of, you shouldn't have done that. The world shouldn't be this way. I'm creating it. There's grace in that.
That brings us to the concept of, I like to go really old school, like a Ms. Pac-Man or just
okay, I'm going to need more for this one.
Pac-Man Senior, meaning you are the one who is your higher self playing this game, or your higher self is watching you playing this game, but you aren't the game. You can learn from the game. You can participate in the game. The game can hurt, but it is still, and it's not making light of the game. But you can realize there is a difference. Then you can live it. Then you can experience the richness. And then rather than ostrich up, which we're all feeling on occasion now, myself especially included, when I look at the news and I go, WTF. But instead, I can say, I chose to be here for the richness of the experience. There's something that I'm going to get out of this. And it's going to actually, sort of like being in that race and going, OMG, it's actually going to help me see even more the creator, who I'm capable of being, what I'm capable of being.
Absolutely. And I'll sort of like take us to the next iteration of something that's happening in 2024 that fits this idea. Michael, there was more hopeful stuff in the year than I maybe thought an hour and a half ago. So in October and November, there's this beautiful way that Jupiter and Chiron are going to come together in a 60-degree dance. 60 degrees is, we call that the sextile. In fact, on TikTok, I have to go into my captions and make sure that it doesn't say sex tile or sex towel. That's a big one. Because TikTok will diminish the response if I say sex 12 times in a video. Anyway, so sextiles are productive geometry if we put the effort in. That's important in a sextile, right? You have to know this. It's just potential. And if you don't put any healing or expansive energy in, you ain't going to benefit from the planet of expansion and the planet of healing in this beautiful 60-degree dance. Why it's a dance is they're very different speeds, these guys. Yep. Jupiter's got a 12-year orbit and Chiron's got a 50-year orbit. But Jupiter is, I don't remember, I'm not looking at my program, but Jupiter's moving slowly in October and November because of retrograde. And when they meet up in early October in this beautiful sextile, they're going to stay together and move together for 2 months in this sextile dance. So that does mean that like October and the first half of November has a beautiful healing expansion sensibility that we will benefit from if you're putting in money in the bank of your own healing and expanding process. So that's a lovely little message that brings us almost to the end of the year and allows us to finish it up with some sense of hope before we move into the new year.
See, I will take that. I will take that. I will also say it, to me, it feels unusual just because people don't talk about it much. You've got, I think you call it Mars, Mars in the shadow. We've got a true blue moon. No, we've got a true black moon, yes. 2 new moons. You rarely hear people talking about that. What's that's coming up in November? What does that mean for us?
First of all, blue moons and black moons in traditional astrology relate to the calendar, the Julian calendar. Therefore, I think it's nonsense. It's bull. I don't give a So the idea that 400 years ago, some Roman was like, we're going to use this calendar. Now we got to cram in leap year and all kinds of permutations. And so, but what a blue moon is 2 full moons in the same calendar month. And a black moon is 2 new moons in the same calendar month. So when that happens, I think that 2 lunations in the same sign, now that's something I can get behind, right? Because that's like a double opportunity to either set intentions or generate a release in a particular archetypal area of our consciousness. But in November, we get sort of a true black moon. So we've got a new moon in Scorpio right at November 1st, right? So the whole month sort of starts out as a intense sort of, Scorpionian experience. And then at the very end of November, we just get another new moon on the 30th in the sign of Sagittarius. So to me, it's a true black moon because on November 1st, we set intentions and create a new lunar cycle. And then at the end of the month, we're done with that lunar cycle and we still get to set intentions. It's November 30th. So I'm sorry, Michael, but like, I'm going to talk about it in my forecast that I do. We're talking about it now. It's like, who gives a because the next day it's December 1st. And then the idea that they both happened in November, like, prove it to me that counts. Like life doesn't change so much from November 30th to December 1st. But it is a true black moon. So I'm so sorry to be like, oh, yes, we have one. And I don't. Now, listen, Michael, at any moment, you can trade me out for another astrologer and you will find they will talk about personal. They will talk about the retrogrades of outer planets and social planets in a way that I think is silly. They will talk about, oh my God, yes, we set a new moon in the beginning of November and one at the end of November, and it makes November amazing. but I don't think it does. It just means that we set intentions on November 1st and then we do it again on the 30th. So,
All right,
sorry.
let's go from there. The end of the year, taking us through December, or I don't give a shit in his land. What do we need to know about before we go into 2025, where we may want to duck and cover?
Well, it's there's something that does happen ironically on December 31st. I can use synchronicity and certain like exactnesses of geometry to sort of make a point. We've talked a lot today about the madness that's coming and the idea that we are in this gear change from the old world to the new, really crossing the ages. And Pluto always tells that story. Like since we discovered Pluto in 1937, then in the world of astrology, we also then had an understanding of the principle of deep change and transformation. Mm-hmm. So as Pluto goes, so does all of our deep transformations. And the North Node gives us our forward movement energy. And so Pluto is going to sextile the North Node on December 31st. That to me is a gorgeous way to end the year. What it does is it sort of tells us that again, I hate to use these words of like good and bad, but sextiles, 60-degree angles are positive, creative, productive geometry. It's the geometry that says, oh, I've got all the tools I need, right? If I pick them up, I got to go to the tool shed and get them. Like I might not have them around my belt, but I own the tools in a sextile and I got to pick them up. So the idea that 24 is less bumpy than that which is coming, similar energetically to this year, 23, and 25 promises the beginning of a heated up and amplified experience. Mm-hmm. I just love that at the end of the year, we're sort of ushered in as we cross the threshold from 24 into 25 with a kind of message that says, everything is changing, Pluto, but we're creating a new world, North Node, and the 60-degree geometry says we have what we need to face the changes that come.
See? You did. Hope. You did hope. Give us a hopeful.
We found it. We found it.
So, on that beautiful note, tell us about your book, and then where can people go to find your daily astro alert, and what in the world is that?
Sure. I'm actually very excited about the book because it's done. I hated writing it. I hate writing books, but I love having written books.
do you feel pulled? Because right now I'm in the middle of a book and I have no choice in the matter. Did you feel pulled?
I technically with this book, I didn't feel pulled because I was asked to write it. My publisher wanted this book on dreams that are mystical and the connection between dreaming and our mystical and intuitive nature. And they came to me and they said, will you write it? And I was like, I had to say yes, because they were going to go to someone else if I said no. I just had first right of refusal because I'm their dream guy. Yep. So I didn't have the passion to do it. Now, listen, writing is the most natural thing for me to be. I'm a writer. I love writing. I did not like writing this book. I didn't like writing any of my books, but now that it's done, I'm very excited. And so what it is, the book is just lots and lots of stories of people who have experience with precognitive dreams, sharing dreams, visitation dreams, problem-solving dreams, you name it, mystical, like all that happens in night terrors and sleep paralysis. And indeed, it explores how our still small voice is easier to find when we're sleeping in dreams because our rational mind that interferes with that still small voice is asleep. Anyway, it comes out January 8th. It's certainly available for pre-orders before January 8th, but it's called Psychic Dreamer, exploring the connection between dreams and intuition. And I'm having fun with that.
And I will have you back. I will absolutely.
Oh, yay. We'll talk about it. I love it. Yeah. You are a big fan of my daily astro alert, so I'll share about that. I write a
Yes.
very, very detailed daily astrological description. It comes out in email or text the night before. So 6 p.m. Pacific time comes anywhere between say 3 and 900 word description of the next day's astrology. They're a little hard to follow at first because it's real astrology. But if you want to learn astrology, kids, the Daily Astro Alert is the way to do it, because I'm giving you all the language about what's going on with the details you will learn. I have my own forecast that I do that is much more detailed than this. It's a good, like 3-hour webinar where I'm going through everything, and a monthly and all the eclipses and the retrogrades and whatnot. I'm holding that live on New Year's Day. But of course, the recording is how most people will tap into it. Not everybody wants to spend their New Year's with me, but if you want to, I'll be doing it at 10 a.m. Pacific. And I'll also say this: I'm teaching a class that starts on January 13th that is different than my other classes on shadow work and self-investigation and healing. I call it Jumpstart Your Spiritual Practice. And it's a 4-week class where I talk about everything that I know about breath, meditation, prayer work, mind work, ritual, lunar cycle rituals, all of the things that light up my spiritual practice. Now, it's not a class about doing a certain meditation technique where we learn it and do it for 4 weeks together and deepen one singular approach. It's not. Don't come if that's what you're looking for. It's like, I have 1,000 tools in my toolbox because that's what I needed. So I'm going to spend 4 weeks sharing all of the stuff that I know about all of the ways that fill up my spiritual practice. MichaelLennox.com is the best place to find all that stuff.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll have all those links down below as well. I gotta go there. Any positive, I know there's no good nor bad, but we can have positive, any positive words of encouragement. Rocky, what do you want to share with us?
You know, what can I say? Every time you ask me that question, I remind us all that the work is inner and individual, and the more courageously we do it, the more peace we'll see outside in the world. You know, I think that I believe in the resilience of us as human beings fully.
Yes.
And I do believe we're going to make it. I do believe that in order, though, to feel like we're going to make it, we have to have some radical acceptance that we got some bumpier roads ahead. And then we just got to trust that we're being inched in that direction slow enough that when and if any hits the fan, we're ready.
Who? So do I have you on record? Humanity will make it through, Michael?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Woo-hoo. There you go.
There's a woo. There's the woohoo. I love it.
So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, fasten your seatbelt for 2024, and then your shoulder harness, and then your leg harness, and any other harness that you have. And above and beyond all else, shine bright. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
You don't even know if wow is the right term to use because of what may be coming in 2024. But I do look at it as a collective positive. I do look at it as some great opportunities here. And I do look at it as an opportunity to dive into the shadow work, to dive into the subconscious, to see what's going on or what's hidden in the basement. That's why we have our School of Mystics. Do come join us. We're helping rewire your subconscious, bring up whatever's inside of there to be healed. We do group meditations, we do group clearings, we do group manifestation work, and we do individual work, giving you so many different tools to help rewire the mind and rewire that subconscious for whatever may come your way. So here's the link below to join the School of Mystics. We also have automatic writing where you're able to connect with your angels, with your guides, with your loved one on the other side of the veil to ask, what the heck is going on? Where do I go from here? What do I need to take note of? That's at automaticwriting.com. We have a whole live live and video-based program to guide you through with live classes as well. Last but not least, if you want a daily attunement to bring your energy up, and way up, and it's something that comes out of my automatic writing, you can simply go to dailywoohoo.com. I've got that link down below, dailywoohoo.com. Here's the link to the next amazing show. Love you guys so much. Keep on shining bright. Woohoo! How does it get any better than this? Lots of love, everyone.